So I tried an Elden Ring challenge run. I've been watching a lot of challenge runs lately, and I beat the game. Once. So I thought, how hard could it be? The challenge is, can you beat Elden Ring using only Tibia summons? But why Tibia summons, you may ask? I didn't want the first challenge to be too difficult, and I came across a video of someone that said Tibia summons were overpowered. I now know that this was a complete lie. Before I start, I want to lay down a few rules. 1. I can only use the Tibia summon spell, obviously. 2. My level cap is level 150. Spoiler, I didn't even reach that level. Also, I'm gonna do this run in New Game Plus, because I did some YouTube research and saw that someone already attempted this run. Apparently FP is a huge problem, and also I already had Tibia summons on my character. Okay, let's start the run. To get Tibia summons, you'll simply have to defeat the Tibia Mariner at Windham Ruins. I don't really know how to pronounce that. For Tibia summons, you need level 20 Faith and level 28 Intelligence. Because I'm a pathetic sorcerer, I already had level 28 Intelligence, but my Faith was only level 11. So I went to Rennala and I gave her one of my kidneys to be reborn. I changed a few stats and swapped my Radahn Sword Seal for Marika's Sword Seal. Now I have level 20 Faith and apparently level 94 Intelligence. But who cares? Time for New Game Plus. After entering New Game Plus, I quickly came across my first enemy, the Grafted Scion. I thought my damage was pretty good, and that this would be an easy first kill. Damn, did you see that smooth transition? I didn't even die. So next up, the Soldier of Godrick. I was extremely scared of this boss because of his reputation of being the hardest boss in the game. After traversing the mist, I immediately regretted my decision. I wanted out. I tried to run away, but it was futile. So I mustered up the courage and fought him head on. Throughout this fight, I noticed two things that put me at an extreme disadvantage. First of all, Tibia summons are very easy to miss. Second of all, the casting is way too long. Even after casting, I have to wait a second for my character to stand up. After a tough fight and actually nearly dying, I finally beat the Soldier of Godrick. I didn't expect him to be this hard, but if I can defeat the Soldier of God, then surely I can beat the game. All jokes aside, me almost dying to the tutorial boss should have been a major red flag. So I went upstairs, opened the door to Limgrave and saw my next target, the Tree Sentinel. And this is when problem number 3 appeared. I couldn't use Tibia summons on Torrent. So I did what every sane person would. Step off my horse, still try to fight, die, skip the Tree Sentinel and make my way to the first main boss, Margit. On my way there, some random girl tried to infiltrate my personal space, which I didn't like. But she was pretty cute and offered me a Honda Accord, so I let her stay. After making sure she wasn't scamming me, I continued my journey to Margit. And this is where the true challenge started. Entering Margit's arena, he called me a foul tarnished, which I found very rude, so I decided to beat his ass. But instead, he beat my ass for a whole hour. I wasn't very familiar with Tibia summons, so for me this was also pretty good training. Eventually I started to realize how Margit, and most bosses, work. If they're in range, they attack. If they're not in range, they wait for the player to attack. And after the player attacked, the boss would initiate their move or attack. If I'm out of range, Margit usually does a slow walk, and after learning Tibia summons range, I would make use of this. So my tactic was to run to the other side of the arena and cast Tibia summons. Margit would be out of range, but because I cast a spell, he now tries to close the distance so he can follow up with an attack, most of the time running right into my spell. I did die a few more times. But after a few more tries, I beat Margit using this tactic. To be completely honest, I didn't expect Margit to be that difficult. Because of Margit, I had a lot of anger boiled up inside me and killed this guy at the main gate of Stormvale. Apparently he also steals runes when you die, and he locks you up in the room with a key, so all the more reason to end this man's existence. Next up, Godrick. Next up, Godrick. Next up, Godrick. Okay. Hey look, it's Godrick. He's apparently addicted to gold and dragons or something. I don't know, he might want to see a therapist about that. I was actually really scared of Godrick because of my difficult time with Margit, but Godrick was surprisingly easy. The only thing I had to learn how to dodge was his tornado attack thing. I only died once and got him on my second try. After Godrick, I went to Hogwarts. I think a lot of people already made that joke. I ran past some of my classmates who for some reason were actively trying to kill me. I went through the fog wall and greeted Radagon's dog. The dog was so happy to see me that he was a bit aggressive. Heck, he even tried to kill me twice.
What the dog doing?
But after a few hugs from my Tibia summons, I put him to sleep for eternity. Yeah, he ain't waking up from that. I ran outside and got hit by 2 huge balls and watched the man slip down an endless pit. And then it was time for Rennala. I actually think that this fight is impossible using only Tibia summons. Why, you may ask? Let me tell you why. I have to attack 3 of her sweetings to break her shield. Sounds easy, right? Yeah. Not when it takes 5 hours to cast one spell. Every time I cast my spell, I get hit by the books they keep throwing at me, cancelling my spell and eventually making me run out of heals. I even tried staying behind cover, but my summons would attack my cover. Also, this fight shows that the focus function is extremely bad if there are multiple enemies in one area. It kept focusing on the wrong sweeting, or my summons would just attack the wrong sweetings. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Rennala is highly resistant to magic. I did only 186 damage every spell. After running around for 20 minutes with no flasks left, I gave up and restarted the game. I allocated my flasks, changed my wondrous physic and tried again. After another 30 minutes, I finally made it to her second phase with only 1 FP flask and my wondrous physic. So, of course, I died. But I tried again. The exact same thing happened. 1 FP flask and my wondrous physics flask, and I simply just died. 3 tries took me around 1 hour and 30 minutes. I tried to be patient while fighting her, but I gave up. Until I did some research. If I can believe facts are alive, then Rennala is an optional boss, because I needed to kill at least 2 shard bearers, and I already got one, which was Godrick. And I found out that Radahn is another one. So I said screw it, I'm fighting Radahn. I made my way to Ranni to do a part of her quest, so I can fight Radahn. Sadly, I first had to fight Loretta to get to her. I still was a bit fed up with Rennala, so I did something I wasn't very proud of. I cheesed Loretta with her famous quit the game in the corner cheese. I don't know if that's what it's called, but I'll call it that. After reloading the game, I beat her. Fair and square? Well, the damage has been done, no time to take back my actions. I went to Ranni, did a part of her quest, and boom, I was at the festival. You might wonder why Alexander is here. Well, the portal didn't open, and I forgot that you had to talk to Celavis. So, I found Alexander, and thought he was my way into the festival. But after spamming Tibia summons to free him, it simply didn't work. So I did something illegal. But apparently it wasn't needed, so please forgive me. I couldn't let Alexander stay stuck in that hole. Quick note while editing, apparently you can also enter the festival if you activate the Altus Plateau. So cheesing Loretta and doing a part of Ranni's quest was actually a waste of time. Also, if I had to free Alexander with my fist to progress the game, I would have lost the challenge. Luckily, that didn't happen. It's time to fight Radahn, and oh boy, was this fight hard. I died a lot.
Thank you, Dark Souls.
He was extremely aggressive and didn't even give me a chance to cast a spell. Again, I thought all hope was lost, but then I remembered that I'm a pathetic sorcerer. I found a new tactic. I'm going to fight Radahn like I fought Margit, so it wasn't really a new tactic actually. Simply running away and attacking when I have enough distance. And it worked. I still died once, but I eventually got him. I did cheese him at phase 2. But hey, if FromSoft doesn't patch this, then it ain't my problem. I did feel kinda bad though. To be honest, after cheesing 2 bosses in a row, I felt so bad that I went to Reddit and looked up what people thought of cheesing. And luckily most people didn't mind. Heck, a lot simply said a win is a win, so I moved on. I went to the Altus Plateau and made my way to the entrance to Leyndell. There was only one foe stopping me from entering, the Draconic tree Sentinel, and he hit very hard, so history repeats itself. I kept dying over and over again. I tried multiple tactics, like getting him to drop aggro and fighting him, or trying to hide in spots where I thought he couldn't go, but nothing worked, so I had to resort to the old-fashioned tactic called learning his moveset. I eventually learned that I had an opening after he tried to charge me. This wasn't 100% fail proof, because sometimes his horse would immediately follow up with a fireball. But it worked and I could tank a few shots, so it was okay. I also had an opening after his lightning attack in phase 2. And I found out that you have 1 or 2 iframes in the middle of casting Tibia summons, but that was pretty useless because the chances of this working were very small. Nevertheless, I beat the Draconic tree Sentinel and made my way into Leyndell. First, I felt bad for a random crossbow loser, so I let him shoot 3 arrows in my back. Next up, Godfrey. Well, the apparition version. Yeah, this guy is an absolute joke. I'm not gonna spend too much time on him. I beat him on my first try. It took a while, but with my run and cast tactic, he would eventually succumb to Tibia summons. I was actually really proud of myself. The first boss I didn't die 100 times to. Next, Margit. I thought, a Margit clone. How hard could this be? Well, for phase 1 this wasn't hard. The same run and cast tactic applied. But when phase 2 happened and he started getting all constipated and stuff, the constipation added new knowledge to his brain. Whenever I cast Tibia summons in phase 2, he would sidestep the spell. So every boss until now just walked straight into my spell. But this was different. For the 3rd time, I thought the run was over. I couldn't get a single hit in, sometimes just by luck. But luck wasn't on my side, but I kept trying. After a few tries, I noticed something. When I try to create distance, he likes to throw 3 knives and follows it up by throwing his spear. This was my window to cast the spell. The problem with this is that there's an 80% chance that I won't be able to dodge his spear at the end of my spell cast, so I had to tank the spear. Eventually, I got him pretty low, but I only had 1 health flask left. I tried my best dodging his attacks. I actually started sweating and even fat fingered my Ash of War. Luckily it was only spinning weapon, which doesn't really have a range or anything, so it doesn't count. After playing it really safe, he did his knife and spear attack. It was now or never, so I casted my spell. Due to me still being at the end of my cast, I got hit by his spear and died. But Tibia summons finished him off for me and I took him with me to the grave. I was actually scared that it didn't count, but it did. Excited, I made my way to the fire giant. I see the fire giant as the switch to late game bosses, because this guy hits extremely hard. I even had a very hard time fighting him in my first run, so I wasn't looking forward to this fight, but I went into the fight with a positive mind. I mean, how hard can it be? This boss is a giant. Well, even with this boss, it's extremely difficult to hit his legs. I kept dying and dying and dying and dying. Fighting this boss with Tibia summons was something different, something I've never experienced before. Some attacks just insta-kill me, and most hit extremely hard. Also, I want to add, if he does a chain attack, he doesn't give you any time to heal. And his fire attacks? Yeah, this fight was the most frustrating experience I've ever had in any FromSoft game I played. Oh, and if I made it to the second phase, well, his weakness becomes his eye and his arms. Good luck hitting his eye and arms using Tibia summons. I only did around 500 damage, so I kept doubting if I had enough FP, but I kept on trying. I didn't want to give up. I do need to mention that I did take multiple breaks, and after my break the first 2 tries felt relaxed, but after that it just became frustrating again. So after 3 hours my limit was reached. I have huge respect for people that can do a challenge run and sit there for more than 5 hours to beat a boss, but I simply didn't have the skill or the patience, so this is where I failed the challenge run. Even after failing, I didn't want to give up, so I summoned my Mimic. You might say, oh, your Mimic makes it too easy. Joke's on you. My Mimic is completely useless in this fight. First, I had to restart a fight because my Mimic kept using spinning weapon, so I gave him the meteorite staff. The next thing that happened was my Mimic didn't hit the boss. He kept missing or using these starlight shards for no reason, and when it hits, it only does 500 damage. The positive thing is he aggroes the boss, but he died after just a few hits from the fire giant. After another 30 minutes and the fire giant doing another fireball attack that didn't let me dodge, I quit. I gave up. I simply felt defeated. And you might say, oh, you can get the Prince of Death staff so your damage increases. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna change anything in this fight. It will always end the same way. So for the people that do challenge runs, I would like to ask you to try this run. I want to see if I just truly suck or that using only this spell is impossible. Here's a quick bonus. After failing the challenge, I found out that you can skip Fire Giant. I actually didn't want to do it because I already cheesed 2 bosses, but I wanted to see what would come next. So I skipped the Fire Giant. By the way, this skip still works as of patch 1.06. After making my way up the weird trophy looking thing, I talked to Melina, committed a cardinal sin and made my way to the next boss, the Godskin Duo. Let's just say that I should have just quit after Fire Giant. This boss felt like actual torture. It might be because my sanity was already completely drained by the Fire Giant, but the Godskin Duo felt somehow worse. It just felt unfair. Everybody always says that with gang bosses, one should be more passive and the other more aggressive, or one is fast and the other one is slow. And while this is true for the Godskin Duo at the beginning, after you kill either one of them, the other one becomes more aggressive and it stays aggressive. And if the other is respawned, they are both aggressive. I don't know if that's how it works or that I just have bad luck, but with Tibia summons casting time, after a while I just couldn't even cast one spell. I always end up dying. I even came close a few times, but then some BS happened. For example, the big guy starts rolling after he has only 50% of his health left. Okay, sure, but these pillars are useless if you want to block him. A lot of times he just rolls over it, and if he rolls you against the wall, he stays there, and it's an automatic death because you can't go anywhere. Eventually, I simply reached my limit, so for the sake of my sanity, I gave up. So this was the run. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to complete it. I will probably try more challenges in the future, and hopefully they aren't as shit as the Tibia summons. Again, I respect every person that does challenge runs and has the skill and the patience to go through some of these. And if you do challenge runs and see this video, please try this run yourself. I would love to see someone actually being able to finish this challenge. I want to thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I put a lot of effort into this video. See you next video. Bye.